Hello, this is my introduction to the FlowStone graphical programming language. The first thing I'm going to do is make a cool little project which switches an LED on with a switch. So the first thing we need is an LED, so I'm going to type LED into the library, and there is our little LED module. I'm now going to get a switch, and here is the switch. You'll see that there is an input on the left of most modules and outputs on the right. I can then wire these two together, and we've now got a switch which controls an LED. Some modules have this little P element on the bottom right, which means parameters, so there's things that you can easily change. In this case, the colour of the LED, so now we have a red LED. We can also monitor our data flow, and we can do this by adding in these basic elements. This is a Boolean element where you can see whether the item is true or false. We can also add in different types. This is an integer one, and you can see that integers are 0 to 1. So we can convert different data types into different values. Okay, let's now expand on this and make something a little bit more interesting. Let's make some decisions. Let's grab another switch, and let's grab an AND gate. Now what we want to do is only switch on the light if both of these elements are true. So switch 1 on, nothing; switch 2 on, the light goes on. Okay, so that's our little switch project. We can now make that into a actual a program, and we can do that by selecting everything and making it into a module. So on the bottom here you've got this make module little icon. Now it's a module, we can switch on the graphics, and we can unlock the graphics, and now we can drag and drop these elements around. So this is now like a little app. Okay, so we can switch this on, 2 ones gives a 1. We can also simulate this by clicking on the little magnifying glass, which puts it into focus mode, or simulating how an app would look. Okay, so you can see what we have there. Okay, that's our first project. Now let's do something else, a bit more exciting. Let's get a meter module. Okay, here's an analog meter module, and let's get a slider, and let's control the meter from the slider. So a couple of things we need to do. First of all is we need to switch the meter on. You'll see that it's actually currently switched off, and we can do that using a little bool module. Ta-da! And then we can connect our slider to the floating point input on there. So now we have our slider controlling our meter, but you can see that the range isn't quite right. When that's at full, it's at 1 on here, and the meter goes to 12. So we can go into the parameters here and make the maximum 12. There we go. And now we've got a meter, and you can see when we move it quickly there's some nice ballistics on that meter. Okay, let's do something else. Let's do something with audio. One of the things we can do is get an oscillator, and we need a sound card. I'm going to use the direct sound, which is the basic Windows sound card, and I'm going to get a little volume knob so that we can control the volume. Okay, so all we need to do now is give this oscillator a value. So let's give it a value of 1000, 1 kilohertz. There you can hear the sound. And to make this more fun, let's add a slider. Okay, and let's make that from 20 Hz to 20 kilohertz. There we go. Okay, switch that off for now. We can also monitor the waveform as well. If we use a little scope, we can drop that onto the output and we can actually visualize what's going on. So here we can see our sine wave, and if I change the type of wave, say sawtooth, triangle, square wave, you can actually see it, and if we turn the volume up you can hear those. Okay, so that's how we can do some audio projects. What else can we do with FlowStone? We can connect it to physical hardware, something like, let's say, an Xbox controller. Okay, here's the Xbox module, and we can switch that on and just connect an LED to check whether it's switched on or not. Add a trigger module, and we've now connected to our Xbox module, and we can now drop in some displays to see what's going on. So now if I move some of the joysticks, you can see data is moving. So in this case the thumb X goes down to -1, 0 in the middle and +1 at the end. We can also monitor some of the switches and just connect these to some displays, and now you can see switches going from false to true, and we can connect those to LEDs and things. We could also add in a meter, something like that. There's a bidirectional meter, connect that, and you can see that goes negative, 0, positive. We can also make decisions as well, use things like greater than. So for example, if this float is greater than, say, 0.5, we want to switch on a light. Okay, let's copy our LED over here, copy paste there. So now, when I move this, if I go negative we get nothing, a little bit positive nothing, then go over 0.5 and the light comes on. So we can make decisions, and we can use this to make a whole game or interface to electronics. Okay, now I'm going to connect to a USB hardware interface, something like a fidgets module or some form of USB electronics interface. In this case I've got a little infrared temperature probe from Fidgets, and all of the Fidgets modules are supported in FlowStone. So here we've got Fidgets temp, and we can just switch it on, monitor that it's been switched on with an LED. Okay, so we're now connected and it's working. So what we need to do is to monitor the temperature. So I'm going to put a little float here, and you can see what the temperature is. I'm also going to add a little meter, and let's go to here, and let's make the range from 0 to, say, 40 degrees. Okay, and now if I put my hand over the Fidgets module, you'll see the temperature's going up. I move my hand away, temperature goes down. So we could use this to maybe monitor the temperature of a room, switch on a thermostat. We could create all sorts of interesting projects using these modules. Okay, next we're going to look at connecting a Midi keyboard to FlowStone. We have some great demo synths that we can play with, and here's one of the demo files. Here you can see it's got a Midi input, which could be the PC keyboard, or in this case our little piano, and the audio device can be your primary sound device. So here, if I press a note, you can see the synthesizer plays. We can play more than one note, maybe a different octave. And we can change all of these parameters while it's playing. So for example, the cutoff on a filter. What's great with FlowStone is it's sort of open source. You can go into any project and click and go inside that project and see what's going on inside. So if you want to see how this synthesizer has been made, you can go inside and you can see Midi inputs, there's an arpeggiator, there's different oscillators, amplifiers, filters, various things. So you can see how the synthesizer has been made. We can go much lower into these modules and see what's going on mathematically as well. Some of it's maybe written in code. We've got the whole of the Ruby programming language inside FlowStone, so some of the stuff is coded. So it's quite a powerful little tool. Okay, now we're going to look at the Ruby programming module. This is one of the most sophisticated parts of FlowStone and allows you to code directly inside FlowStone using the world famous Ruby programming language. So if I bring in our Ruby module, here we can actually type physical code into this window. So we've got inputs on the left, and you can grab this to make more inputs, and we've got outputs on the right, same here. Okay, and let's just connect some data. So let's make a string, connect that to the input, and let's put a string on the output to monitor it. And what's great is Ruby is interpreted, and what that means is that the code runs in real time, all the time. So this is actually running now. So we need to just give it some code. We need to learn a couple of keywords to start with, which are specific to FlowStone. One of them is output, which outputs a value, and if we do @in, that's another keyword which says at the first input. So you can see that it's output our input string. We can now modify this by adding a Ruby modifier like uppercase. Okay, and you can see now that it's converted our string into an uppercase word. And as we type more data, you can see that the whole thing is working in real time as we work. We can also do maths. So if I change all of these to floats, okay, floats, float. Now we can do in times 5. Okay, so we can see that we can do maths, and this can be very, very, very complicated as necessary. Next, we're going to look at the event system in Ruby. This is very powerful because it outputs things based on an event, a moment in time, something changing. And in order to use events, we need to define an event in Ruby, and to do that we type def event, and we need to give it 3 variables: which event input it is, what the event data is, and the time the event happened, and we need to give it an end. So now when something happens, this bit of code will be run. So we could say output at output number 0 hello world. Okay, so now if I change this number, it will be an event and it will output hello world. Okay, not bad for a start. Now let's make a decision on that. Let's say if the input is greater than 10, output hello world. Okay, else let's output 0, nothing, blank, and just end there. Okay, so now if I put 0 in there, we get nothing. If I put 1 in there, we get nothing. If I put 11 in there, it outputs my hello world. So that's an event. We can also add a delay to that as well, so it doesn't happen straight away. So if I just clear my event, I can then put comma t plus 2 seconds. So now when I do 11, 1, 2, bing, there we go. So we've now delayed the event because it knows the time the event was started, so the time plus 2 seconds was when it output. So that's very useful for various things. And you can see now how we can build up some complex code using the Ruby module. Now I'm going to show you how we can use Ruby to draw to a display window. A display window is a standard FlowStone module that basically you can draw to, and you can see that this is connected in this example using the yellow V for video type of connector. So we've just changed the input type from float or string to the yellow V here, and there's no output in this case because the output is the video back round the back into this display window. And here's a little bit of code that I'm going to modify. Here we've got a pen called P which has a colour, and we can change these colours here, and you can see how it affects our line. And we've got sort of a width as well, so we can make the line thicker or thinner. And then we've got a vector basically to draw the line, so V, which is the video window, draw a line using the P pen from 1, 1 to 10, 5. So if I make that to 10, 10, you can see how that works. And what's great about using the Ruby module in FlowStone is you get instant feedback. If this was coded in C, you'd have to compile it, run it, see if it worked. In FlowStone using Ruby, you get instant feedback, so you can see what's happening. We can now draw some other lines, so if I copy that, I can go through and say, well, let's draw another line from, say, 10, 10 to 0, 20. So you get the idea how we can build up shapes. Well, this could be automated, it could be on a loop and generate a picture or something. So that's how we can draw lines. We can also draw shapes. If I open up this next little project, you can see how we can draw shapes, and it's very similar. What we've got is we've got a brush called B, which is a colour. We've got a pen. We've got gradients, and here you can see we've got to draw a line, we've got to draw ellipse, rectangles or Bezier curves. So we can do some quite interesting drawings and shapes using the Ruby module in FlowStone. And you can open these code things and just go and change them if you're not sure what they do. And you can see here I've changed, oh, that must be the transparency of that blue little circle. If I make that 50, you see it's almost disappeared, and here I can make it solid, so that's called alpha channel. Then we've got things like colours, so we can change the colour of it here. You know, it's very easy to come in and just hack around, you're not going to do any damage, and because the feedback is instant, it helps you learn very, very quickly. Here we've got a rectangle from 710 to 5.7, so we can make that a bigger rectangle. We can change this Bezier curve. This has got an array, you can see, of points, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different points which define that array. So you can see how we change our Bezier curve. And there's lots of examples on the FlowStone website for you to download and have a play with these. Okay, I want to show you something a little bit more sophisticated so you can see the power of FlowStone and Ruby. This is a little project made one of our users called Graphical Stars, and it's basically a bit of Ruby code, if we go in here, which draws various stars, and you can see it's a reasonable amount of code. And what happens here is we switch it on and you can see all of these stars animated, and there's things like transparency and rotation, so it's very, very clever. And here we can turn things on and off, turn the transparency off and on. We can turn the outlines off, change the number of stars. So it's very, very powerful and very interesting to see some of the code some of our power users have done in order to achieve some very interesting results.